without disagreeing with that at all, it's not enough. And there are many examples of this. So when Freeman went around in his mobile lobotomy truck performing orbital lobotomies, took about 15 minutes. He'd take a probe, he'd put it between the eye and the skull socket, and he would do a lobotomy with this needle in 15 minutes. Who was he doing it on? He was doing it very often on teenage girls and boys, and he was called in by the parents to do it. Boys because they fought, and girls because they were promiscuous in most cases. And the point is, why did that happen? If you look back at the history of genetics and you look back at the history of neuroscience, what you see is that people engaged in behaviors that we now think of as reprehensible on the basis of moral values that they applied to the science and then thought were scientific. I mean, Stephen Jay Gould writes about this in The Mismeasure of Man. It's really important to examine and we're very bad at this in our culture right now, by the way, in a very critical way, the value assumptions underlying our actions. And if we don't, we make mistakes over and over and over again, where years later, when the value assumptions have become a little bit more critically examined, we say, how could we possibly have thought about that? And I'll just end it by saying, imagine what would happen if we had the ability to genetically manipulate the genome in Victorian times, under the Nazis, in China under Mao, right? The values of that culture would say something like, well, maybe we could, under Mao, maybe we could manipulate the genome so that people would be more loyal to the state.